Imagine this. You want to upload a CSV file and kickstart a backend task to process it in parallel. Maybe you want to import customer information for targeted marketing, analyze sales trends instantly, or generate personalized content using AI. With BuildShip, you can do all of this and more with ease. Let's run through a quick demo. Here's a BuildShip workflow, and we can directly submit a file to this workflow because it uses the file upload trigger. And at the core of this workflow, we loop over each row in the CSV and generate content based on the columns in the CSV using GPT. And after that, we append the new content and return the download URL of the updated CSV file. We'll upload this CSV file to our workflow. This CSV file is pretty basic. It contains 3 columns: job title, company, and job description. We'll upload the file to our workflow using Hopscotch. And we'll send off our CSV file for processing in our BuildShip workflow. After a few seconds, our workflow finishes processing the CSV and returns the download URL of the updated CSV file. We can then download this CSV file to preview the generated content. The generated content in this demo is a cover letter for each row in our CSV file. For the remainder of this video, we'll look at how you can quickly get started with this exact workflow by using a pre-built BuildShip template. We'll go through all the nodes being used, talk about where and how to customize the workflow to work with your own CSV file for your own requirements. And then lastly, we'll show the steps to submitting a file to the workflow. Let's begin. In BuildShip, we'll go to Templates. And here you'll find a number of templates that you can use to quickly get started building your own backend for various use cases. But in this video, we're looking at how you can process a CSV in parallel using GPT. We'll search for the template. Parallel CSV is the one we want to use. We'll select it to get started. And this will spin up an almost fully completed workflow for us, but we just need to do some configurations. Before we start walking through each node in this workflow, let's just scroll down to our GPT text generator node. And you'll notice here that the API key is required, so let's select it. We can get this from our secrets. Keep in mind that if you don't already have your OpenAI API key stored in BuildShip, then you can easily add a new one by just going to Secrets, Add Secret. Now let's scroll back to the very top of our workflow. The entry point of our workflow is the REST API file upload trigger. Every node and trigger in BuildShip has an info panel, which you can use to find out further details about the node. Here we can see that our REST API file upload trigger will allow us to upload files in a multi-part phone data request. And importantly, we can see that this trigger only accepts one file at a time. For the configuration of our trigger, we can specify the path where we want to upload files to, and then the HTTP method to use. In this case, we're using post. Our template has taken care of this configuration for us, so we don't need to do anything here. After that, the next node in our workflow is the read CSV from buffer node. This node takes in a single input, that is the buffer of a CSV file that we want to read. And this node will return an array of objects representing an individual row from that CSV file. If you're curious where we're getting the value from this buffer, then we're getting that from our trigger. If we go to request, and then there's a file object. If we expand that, we can see useful information here about the file being uploaded, such as the original file name, the mem type, and then what we want to use here is the file buffer. After reading the content of the uploaded CSV file, the next thing we're doing is generating a unique file name. We'll use this unique file name for the updated CSV file we'll create later on in this workflow. But if you're wondering specifically what node is being used here, then we can bring up the BuildShip nodes library and search for UUID. So the UUID generator node is what we're using for generating the unique file name. We can actually test this node so that you can see the output of this node. This just returns a unique string for us. And then here it's showing unique file name as the node title because we just renamed the node. Next, we want to loop over each row in the uploaded CSV file. For this task, BuildShip gives us a handy loop node that we can use to loop through over an array of items. The important part for this node is the items input. This is the array that we want to loop over. Of course, for this, we want to loop over the content of the uploaded CSV file. This is the output of the read CSV from buffer node, which returns all the rows from the CSV in an array. Then all the nodes in the body of the loop will be repeated for each item in the array, or better said, each row of the CSV file. And it's inside the body of this loop that you can specify the parallel processing task that you want to perform on your CSV file. For this demo, our task is pretty straightforward. All we want to do is generate some text with GPT and then append that back to our CSV file. So to begin, the first node in the body of our loop is the GPT text generator node. This node will generate text based on the user prompt and system prompt we specify. We already specified at the beginning of the video our OpenAI API key. Let's look at the system prompt being used here. And you can see it's pretty straightforward as well. We're just telling GPT that you're a professional career coach, and that's it. Then let's bring up the user prompt. This is where we tell GPT what type of text we want to generate. And for this demo, we're telling GPT to write a concise and professional cover letter for a job application. Recall that the CSV file we uploaded in the beginning of the video contained 3 columns: job title, company, and job description. Using these 3 columns, we want to generate a cover letter. Next, we're telling GPT about the job title, the company name, and job description. And here we're dynamically injecting these values using a little bit of JavaScript. Let's see how we do this for the job title. We'll remove what's currently here, and then we'll show how you can do the same thing. First, we want to get access to the current row being looped over from the CSV. To do that, we'll go to Variables, Loop, and then this item field represents the current row. Then we know that our CSV file contains a column called job title, and so we can access that from the current row using dot notation, and then we just need to specify the column name, job title. And that's the same thing we're doing for company and job description. The last thing that we're telling GPT here is that it should not include any unnecessary or fictional details, and that we want to keep the cover letter within 250 words. So we just want to reiterate that one more time because this is a very important part when it comes to processing CSV files using BuildShip. When looping through all the rows from a CSV file, if you want to get access to the current row, you can do that by going to Loop and then selecting the item field. Then you can just select whatever column you want from that row using dot notation as we're doing here. In terms of the text generator node, those are the 3 important input fields. And then the other 3 are for max tokens, which controls the amount of text that the model can generate. And there's temperature, and then there's model, where you can select the version of GPT you want to use. In this case, we're using the latest version. The text generator node will generate a nice cover letter for us. Then the next thing we want to do is append that cover letter back to our CSV file. BuildShip provides a utility node that we can use to do just that. This is the append array to CSV file node. We can use this node to append an array of objects to a CSV file. And this node only expects 2 input. The one is for the file path of the CSV file. And then the next one is for the array of objects we want to write to the CSV file. For the file path, we're specifying the name of our CSV file. Because we want this to have a unique file name, we're using the output of the unique file name node that we showed previously in the workflow. And then for the extension here, we're just adding the .csv extension. So that will be our file name. Next, we need to specify the data we want to append to the CSV file. For the data array input, let's expand this a bit. And we can see that this takes in an array of objects if we want to write multiple rows or append multiple rows to the CSV file. In this case, we want to append a single row. That is the current row that we're currently looping over. But the first thing that we want to do is add back all the existing columns. So to do that again, we're using a little bit of JavaScript here. And here we're spreading the current row. Remember, we can access the current row for CSV file by going to loop and then accessing the item field. After we add back all the existing columns to our row, the next thing we want to do is append our new column. And this new column is the cover letter column. So the value being used here is the output of our text generator node. And that's how we're appending back our newly generated column to our existing CSV file. While you can see that the number of steps we're using for processing the uploaded CSV file for this demo is just 1, but depending on the structure of your CSV file and the particular processing you want to do, then the number of steps for you might be different. And while here we're using the text generator node to generate a cover letter for us, you might want to do something different. For example, you may want to instead generate image. And BuildShip provides a number of nodes that you can use for generating AI images. Let's look at one from the replicate group. If we scroll down here, we can see that there's this stability AI image generation node. If instead you wanted to generate images, you could use this node. After we're done looping through and processing each row in our uploaded CSV file, the next thing we want to do is generate a public download URL for the CSV file, so that we can then return that download URL. So for generating a public download URL, we're using the generate public download URL node that BuildShip gives us. This node takes a single input, which is the file path of the file we want to generate the download URL for. For us, we want to generate a download URL of the CSV file we just created. So here, we're using the unique file name that we generated along with the CSV extension. The final thing we need to do here is just return that URL. We're using the return node for that. And for the value, we're using the output of the generate public download URL node. And then we're just accessing the download URL here. And that's all the nodes in our workflow. Next, let's ship and deploy our workflow. And with our workflow deployed, we're now ready to put it to the test. And speaking of testing, let's go through the steps of posting a CSV file from your computer to a BuildShip workflow. Just so you know, for this demo, we'll be using a REST API client to quickly test our workflow. But if you're looking to see a step-by-step tutorial of how you can submit a file from a Flutterflow app, then we'll leave a link in the description of this video so that you can check out one of our previous videos that shows how to do just that. The REST API client that we'll be using in this demo to submit our files to our BuildShip workflow will be Hopscotch. So let's begin. First, we'll go back to our BuildShip workflow, and then we'll copy the endpoint URL. Back in Hopscotch, we'll paste this. Then remember, for the trigger of our workflow, the HTTP method is set to post. So we need to go back to Hopscotch and make sure that we're also making a post request. Next, we need to submit our file as a multi-part form data. If it's not already selected, then what you want to do is navigate to the body tab. And then where it says content type, click the drop down and then select multi-part form data. Then what we need to do is just enter a name for our parameter that we want to submit. We'll just enter file. The important part here is that we need to select the file that we want to submit. So we'll select choose files. And then on the desktop, I'll select this jobs CSV file. And that's all the preparation we need to do for our request. So now we can send it. After a short moment, we get back a download URL for the CSV file. Let's copy this and we'll open it in a new tab to download. We'll save it to the desktop for now. And then we can just preview this. We can see that our previous 3 columns remain for job title, company, and job description. And then we have our newly appended cover letter. Perfect. Our workflow worked great. And that's how you can upload a CSV file to a BuildShip workflow and run a number of tasks in parallel over the contents of that CSV file. If you found this tutorial useful and interesting, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And after subscribing, don't forget to share your feedback or any ideas for what you'd like to see us build next. And that's all for this video, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, happy BuildShipping!